Hi, my name's Phil. I like talking about politics. And in this video, I like to discuss how Brexiteers seem to have a bee in their bonnet about another thing that Remainers warned them about for years. Yet these same Brexiteers, far from being reflective and questioning what else they may have got wrong, have instead decided to just get mad about it. Mad at the EU as well. The EU, the EU we left at their behest so that we no longer had to get mad at the EU for things. It's like the phrase, "don't you ever tired of being wrong," was made for these people. So what is it they're moaning about this time? Well, it's based on a Telegraph article written by the wife of the Deputy Leader of Reform UK, so, totally objective, eagerly being seized on by all manner of Brexiteers. It's a complaint about bottle caps. Yes, that's right, they're mad at lemonade today. The headline is a thing of beauty. The EU's most infuriating rule is still making our lives a misery. Most infuriating rule? So bottle caps are like that's like the worst thing in your life. I'm going to have to say, even if there were a genuine grievance here, which there absolutely is not, but if there were, if the worst thing in your life is a bottle cap, your life's pretty good. I'm going to suggest that. Your life is in pretty good shape. But anyway, this is specifically a complaint about the way most bottle caps now in the UK come tethered to the bottle in order to make recycling easier. Even my own fiance's moaned about this, but as someone who basically lives on fizzy drinks, I love fizzy drinks, I have to say I have never seen what the fuss is about. I actually, even before I realised what it was for, thought, well, this is useful. You unscrew and screw the cap in exactly the same way as before. It actually just saves you having to find somewhere to put or hold it while you pour your drink. Win-win. And as for those making ridiculous arguments, oh, I spill it every time, or I get the cap stuck up my nose. Bottles are cylindrical. Rotate it 30 degrees. It's not hard. It reminds me of that Simpson episode where Krusty has a pop at stand-up comedians for moaning about, oh, I can't set my VCR. I can't open a packet of peanuts. I'm a freaking moron. This is just the modern version of that. It's not difficult. The new tether idea actually makes it easier because now you can't accidentally drop the bloody thing on the dog hair covered floor. However, I'm not here to have a pop at people moaning about bottle caps as if this is a national crisis. This is about Brexit, and it's the Brexiteers who have made it about Brexit. This is because the idea of tethering caps comes from the EU. I actually don't know if the UK government approved of it at the time or not. It doesn't really matter. Brexiteers are complaining that we're still feeling the impact of EU rules. And so people such as myself are now going, well, we did tell you this would happen. Because let's say the UK didn't think this was a good idea. It makes no difference. If a drinks manufacturer wants to sell in both the British and EU market, it will run its production line to satisfy both markets. That means it runs production according to the highest standards, because without the tether, can't sell it in the EU. With the tether, can sell it in the EU and the British market, even if the British market doesn't require that standard. And this is what I meant when I kept saying the Brexit argument was completely backwards. Brexit was about being rule makers, not rule takers. But the reverse is true. We used to make the rules in the EU. There was always this behaviour, this language used as if there was us and the EU, as if two separate entities. No, we were part of it. Almost every new standard that the EU adopted while we were members was either proposed by the UK or strongly supported. Literally about 97% of EU rules had UK backing. We were very influential at both promoting rules we wanted as well as blocking those we didn't. Whereas now, as Brexiteers like Oakshott are cheerfully pointing out, we're now following EU rules. And more importantly than that, the rules that we may have been able to block as members because they weren't in or weren't seen as in UK interest, they're now not being blocked. So we're also following those rules. We're following the rules that wouldn't have existed if we'd have stayed as EU members. Because we're getting no say in these rules. And that is because it is not worth any business having a separate production line just to make products for the British market to a lower standard. There would have to be a huge cost benefit in order to justify that. Now, in theory, there may be some cases where the lower standards provide enough cost benefit to have a second line. And there are bottles which don't have caps tethered. Maybe these will Maybe there are some that are only manufactured for the British market and there's never going to be any export. Okay, there'll be a small number of those, perhaps. But in the vast majority of cases, manufacturers are going to carry on following EU rules in their production because they know if they follow EU rules, they can export to the EU, and they know they can still export to. Britain's not going to have higher standards for anything. Economies of scale mean you want one production line for each product where possible. And we tried to say this at the time. Trade experts were making the point regularly. And that's before we even discussed the fact that actually EU rules are generally pretty good. Like whenever I've tried to ask a Brexiteer, name me a rule, an EU rule that you don't like. They can't. Every now and then they'll say something about prawn cocktail crisps or bananas, which isn't actually true. So it's like, well, find me one that's true that you don't like. I have yet to see one. So, and that is because EU rules actually drive standards up, which benefits the vast majority of us. You ask an ordinary person, the only people who get hurt at all are like some who want a bit more profit. And even then, it's only in some cases. Most businesses are fine with it because they get extra benefit from having access to this huge integrated market. And because this was only one story of EU rules recently as well, like the Labour government have now banned a pesticide associated with the basically extermination of bee populations, bringing them into line with the EU. Now, this is literally a rule that helps protect our ecosystem, our food security, so our own human as well as arthropod and floral interests. And we'd have had the rule earlier had we remained in the EU. You know, leaving the EU didn't make us rule makers. It actually took away our ability to keep driving standards up, because now think about who has to do this work. So these standards, the market standards, are decided by the EU Parliament, you know, driven by the EU Commission's recommendations, but the EU Parliament. So now our national Parliament has to do it all as well. But our national Parliament hasn't expanded to cope with it. The civil service has. The Tories moan about how much the civil service grew. That's because you've given them more work. We used to, as EU members, currently have a national parliament to deal with legislative matters of like national sovereign importance and an EU parliament to look after our market standards. Now our parliament has to do the job of both. And of course it's going to struggle because it needs more people to do more work. It's trying to do the job of two legislative bodies at once. It is incredibly inefficient. And for what benefit? As this bubblehead in the Telegraph points out, we're still tethered to Brussels anyway. Yeah, that's market forces for you. You don't get to ignore market gravity by moaning about it any more than you can fly by flapping your arms. Honestly, when are more people going to start seeing these fools for the imbeciles they are? Even when they realise that their Brexit arguments are hollow, there's no reflection from them, no humility, no, oh, I seem to get that wrong, maybe I should rethink things. Not even a suggestion on how to proceed. This article doesn't even suggest how we should proceed. Maybe we should start to listen to those who were right from the start and do have suggestions. But there we are. Those are my thoughts. If you enjoyed the video, please subscribe for further content and click the like button. You can also sign up for memberships if you'd like to support the channel further. Thanks for watching, and until next time, I'll see you later.